Before this school existed here in a barrio which is known as Vista Hermosa, which means beautiful view in English. There was very little in the way of any infrastructure whatsoever. This is really the only infrastructure that's in this neighbourhood, is this foundation, Oasis Esperanza. And before we arrived, many children were not in education. They were just doing little menial jobs, selling things on the beach, or just hanging around in the neighbourhood really. You know, when we arrived, of course, a lot of people didn't believe that we were going to do what I said we were going to do, you know, have education, you know, actually found a church and have a medical centre, sports academy, etc., etc. But now the people realise, you know, after 16 years, that we're serious about what we're doing, and more children are coming to our school rather than just hanging around in the barrios. What would they do if they didn't come to this school? And they would go to a public school, because by law children are supposed to be in school here in Colombia. The law says every child should be in school, but they don't enforce the law in perhaps the way they would in the US or the UK. So children will go to the public schools. Basically, sometimes the teachers don't get paid in the public school, so they go on strike, or they don't, you know, they're not giving the children the actual education that they deserve. So we believe that we are passionate and very serious about education, so we obviously are paying our staff the correct wages and stuff like that. But it's you know, it could be a sad existence for a child who actually doesn't come to school in any way, shape or form. They can get involved in prostitution, they can get involved in drugs, there's a lot of teenage pregnancy in the poor barrios here. So, you know, some sad cases if we don't actually get them into our school. And even if we do get them into our school, sometimes the parents take them out of the school, and when they do that, we've seen some terrible things happen to those children. You know, several of them have joined gangs, are now in prison, waiting murder charges. We had a child here who was pulled out of the school, and he was selling mangoes outside the gate, and then he was selling trinkets on the beach. And one evening, trying to cross the very busy road at 8:30 when it's dark, he was only 10 years old, a little boy called Gustavo. He was hit by an hit-and-run driver, killed outright. You know, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing. He should have been receiving a good education here, receiving those regular meals, receiving healthcare. But now, sadly, you know, he's no longer with us, and that broke my heart when that actually happened. So the consequences of not being in education here in Colombia can be quite drastic.